Hey there, PhD friends, and welcome to another video. In today's video, I'm chatting with Dr. Piali Ganika. Dr. Ganika has a PhD in virology and immunology, and she started her own business called the Cell Savvy Group. And the Cell Savvy Group is a science and medical communications company. And we talk all about how she got started, why she got started, how you can market yourself if you want to be an entrepreneur. I don't know if you've noticed, but there's a bit of a theme of that going on the channel where, yes, there's so many people that end up in the corporate world as PhDs outside of academia, but there are also a crop of PhDs who are starting their own business, who are blazing their own paths, and I think it's amazing. Okay, so if you want to hear more, learn more from Dr. Ganika, stay tuned for this interview. And I'd like to remind you, if you haven't signed up already, to sign up for my free training on 3 tweaks you can make to your LinkedIn profile to make it stand out to recruiters. If you'd like to check that out, that link is going to be in the description. Click on that link to sign up for the training. Let's jump right into the interview. Hello everyone, and welcome to another interview in the Bold PhD series. Today I'm excited to have Dr. Piali Ganika with me. Dr. Ganika is all the way from India, so we have another Indian person here, and we're super excited to hear her story of what she's done with her career as a PhD. So welcome, Piali, and tell us a little bit more about your educational background.
Okay, so my doctoral degree is in virology and immunology. So that's what I specialized in. But what's interesting is what happened before that. So, I'm quite a storyteller. So, yeah, I'm going to take it that way. I actually did my graduation in biochemistry because I was trying to understand. A PhD was always on my mind. I always wanted to do it. The reason was not the degree, it was more the research aspect of it. I have always loved being in the lab and actually being associated with research. So I did biochemistry to understand the body, and then I went on to do biophysics to be able to understand the diagnostic techniques, etc. And then, of course, I moved into virology and immunology. So it worked out quite well with me in the sense that, I got what I wanted, and it kind of, worked out. Yeah, that's about my educational background, I guess.
Absolutely. So the question that I always ask people is, okay, so now you have this wonderful scientific educational background, you were able to fulfill that need to do some research. What do you do now?
That's a very good question. So, like I told you, I always wanted to get into this. But when I got into it, there was a problem that I faced. I always thought of myself as quite the communicator, as quite the storyteller. But, when I started my PhD, I could not communicate what I was doing in the lab in a language that my friends and my family back home could understand. So, on the lighter side of things, what started happening was like my mother couldn't make sense of why my weekends and my days were dictated by how mice were behaving and how my cells were behaving. And it was quite frustrating for her. And like me and my mother have been very, very close. So it was very difficult for me not to be able to tell her what I am doing in a way that she would understand. So the same happened with my friends. So, like that is where I felt that gap. That was the first time that I realized that what happens in the lab is so different. That world is so different from the outside world. And how do we sort of, bridge the gap? So that is where I started thinking about, okay, what can be done, etc. And that's where I took my PhD then. Into being a science communicator and all of that. A part of it also was this little OCD, if I may say. When I'm reading a paper, if I see a punctuation here or there or a grammar here or there, the technical aspect just remains aside and I'm just getting, all about that. So that made me an editor, and then things followed, and, I got into science communication. So, yeah.
Absolutely. So now you are a science communicator. And I know that because we connected on LinkedIn and from following you a little bit, that you started your own business, right? And so tell us how you went from, getting, you got your PhD, you started realizing there is this gap between the communication in science and then how the general public perceives the research that we do, right? So you felt like, okay, there's this need, which is so excellent, right? Because you realized there was a need and you wanted to fill it. I know that a lot of science communicators, because I'm also a science communicator, work in the corporate world. But you went out and you started your business. Did you start out that way? Did you start out from a corporation? Tell us a little bit of how you started that, so that if somebody wanted to do something similar to what you've done, they could maybe follow your footsteps.
Yeah. So actually, starting my own thing was kind of because as of now, the science communication landscape in India is still not, out there, I would say. There are a lot of government initiatives which are happening, a lot of little courses here and there which are coming up, and they are quite effective. However, the awareness is not as much. So, as a science communicator, I can join a corporate, I can go that way definitely. But somewhere I had some ideas of my own, and to implement them I needed a space of my own, right, to implement ideas of my own. So for example, I felt the lack of a mentorship, of a hand holding sort of a program. Many a times there are students who are trying to do something as simple as apply for a PhD degree, and it's very frustrating, the process. You and I have been there, right? So the process is very frustrating, and they feel that they're doing everything right, but they are not getting the response. So that is where a consultation or a course will not help. That is a place where a hand holding sort of a program will help, wherein there's like a regular correspondence between the mentor and the student, and it's like a continuous process wherein you're like, oh, okay, this is happening, so this is how you troubleshoot, and this is happening, that's how you troubleshoot, so go as you need it, right? So these things were not available elsewhere, and hence I decided to start my own venture. And I would say that anyone who wants to, I remember there was this post, in fact, you had put it up, and it's always the most difficult thing is to start, right? So you were talking about that. So I think, yeah, it was just that I took the leap, and I guess it's working. So.
Yeah, you took a leap and it's working. Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. The hardest part is always getting started. The hardest part is always saying, okay, this is what I want to do, maybe writing that business plan and then going forward, right? One of the questions that I love to ask for the PhD turned entrepreneurs who come on this show is, how do you get clients, right? How do you market yourself to get clients? Because I think that's the number one thing people always worry about is, I want to start this thing, but I don't know if people are going to hear about it. I don't know if people are going to actually even pay me for this thing. So how have you gotten clients into your science communications business to help them with the things that you help them with? Let's talk about that. Let's talk about how you're getting clients, because that's for somebody to go from virology and immunology to business. That's a huge jump. It's a completely different skill set, right? So let's talk about that.
So there have been two things. One has been I genuinely love the subject. So what happens is when I'm communicating, and I have always been somebody who likes to communicate. So now what happened when I got into my business, I would say the biggest thing that helped me was my perseverance of it. So, like every day, putting yourself out there, letting people know what you have to offer. So, when I'm calling myself a science communicator, whether I know the science that I'm talking about, whether I'm able to communicate it. So, how are people going to come to know about it? So, to land clients, the first thing is to be able to put yourself out there, to showcase what you have. And with social media, like when I started out, I'm not a big social media person. So I decided to select one platform. And I did a little bit of research, and I realized that the science communication community is quite strong on Twitter and on LinkedIn. So I selected LinkedIn as my platform. Although we have Twitter, I'm not very active there. And, like You start out slow, that's okay. But the point is to be there every day. Like put out something, communicate with people, interact, network, collaborate. So these things, and then slowly clients start to trickle in because people realize what you're doing in that space. Often I feel overcoming the imposter syndrome in the beginning, like you said, why will people even come to me, is the biggest challenge. So once you start putting yourself out there, and once you start realizing, like I get comments, I get messages saying that, this is so useful, this really helps me. So when I'm doing my seminars and I ask for a feedback, this is the feedback that I get, then I know it boosts my confidence. It tells me that, oh, people need what I'm giving them. So then let me add on to it, and let me sort of take their feedback and give the audience what they want. And that's how clients come in. At least for me, that's how it's worked, I guess.
That's amazing. So I love everything that you just shared. You chose a platform, and I think that that's the biggest thing. Is when people start out businesses, they're not really sure what should I do? Should I start a YouTube channel? Should I go on Facebook? But I love that you said I chose one thing, right? And I decided that that was where I was going to build my audience, and I began to talk about things. And then you said you have seminars. So are these private seminars or webinars or in-person seminars that you have?
No, they are webinars.
Okay.
So yeah, so they are. So I have webinars, and there are in-person workshops. But right now, like on LinkedIn only, I advertise them, and they are generally through my website. There are these webinars, and most of them are free. My master classes are paid, but the webinars are generally free. And what we also do as the company is that every 3 months we are trying to do a thing called the Self Savvy Canvas, which is essentially a symposium where I try to get speakers from different parts of the world to talk about different things, including their experiences. And it's like a 3-4 hours long thing wherein people can hear a different people, and this is all free, of course. So that is another thing I believe, that I understand that we are all in there for the money, right? It's a business, but the thing is that I feel that money comes in when people see value.
Mm-hmm.
So giving value first, automatically you get the reciprocation. So that's why a lot of these things I as a company we do it for free, so that it's out there and people know about it. And also this awareness of science communication that I really really want to bring up in India, that can become more accessible to a larger audience.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love that. I totally agree with you, and I believe in that. That's why I have this channel, is because I want to be able to put enough free content out there that people say, oh, she's helpful, or they're helpful. And therefore, if there is something that I offer, like you're saying, then it's like, oh, if the free content is this good, then I think if their paid content is going to be even better. So that's such a great model, such a well-proven model also, that you give the value up front, and then people that not everybody will buy, 98% of people will not buy, but that 2% or 3% of people end up bringing that income. But another powerful thing, Piali, if you agree with me, is even for the people that don't buy, right, they become your advocates. They essentially begin to spread the word about you. And other people who may be buyers will find out through those people. So love it that you're doing these webinars and doing these in-person events, bringing people in. That's how they find out about you, and you're able to put your paid offer in front of them. That's excellent. The question that I have for you following this is, so for those of you, before I ask this question, for those of you that want to start businesses, like Piali said, just go ahead and get started. It's always going to be scary. It's always going to be, when I was starting this channel, I'll tell you something. I used to wonder, I said, who is going to watch? Like, and I didn't even know, who am I going to interview? Who am I going to speak to about their careers, right? But as I began to talk about it, I began to find there is a need for this. People want to hear about this. people don't even know that they could become entrepreneurs. They don't even know that they could leave academia and stuff like that. So then my next question for you is, I know you went and you started a business. Why did you choose to leave academia behind? Is there a reason?
So like I said, it was always, there when I was in academia. That gap really bothered me to a point that not that I wanted to leave the lab, I wouldn't say that, but I wanted to be a part of the scientific community and yet continue to have some means by which I could make sure that the general public, like you said earlier, has more access to this information. And the pandemic has really brought that to us, right? On our face, it has shown us that everybody needs access to this information. So that was something that kept bothering me. So, of course, there was a little break, when my child was born and all of that happened. And then I realized that why not just get into this and try and figure out. So I read up a little, and then I was getting trained in this, and I was trying to understand. And that is when I started editing papers, and that was a very good way of keeping in touch with the scientific community, because I was coming to know what was happening all over the world. I was reading research and I was able to edit it. I was then I started talking to a lot of international clients, and slowly I decided that, okay, maybe this would be a really good way to carry forward the researcher in me, quote unquote, without actually being a part of academia. So leaving academia was never really the plan. The plan, there was no plan per se. Like I said, this was something I wanted to do. I really wanted to get into the science communication area. So I found this way to be the best. And I think you're right in a way that I have left academia, so to say. But I really don't, I feel that the margin is a little blurred, don't you think so? Like, can we really separate the two? Because so many of my clients are actually from the English second language sort of situations where they are trying to communicate their science. But when they are talking to me, they are talking to me about their research, about the standardization. So it's quite a lot of like overlap that's there. So yeah, so that's how I see it.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. And in this conversation that we're having about leaving academia and all that, one of the things that recently I was having a discussion with another person, and we were talking about that. If you really think about it, academia is not that removed from the non-academic world, right? There's a lot of overlap. It's unfortunate that there are these institutionalized ideas that, this is academia and it's the best place to work, and that this is industry and that's where all the academic rejects go, whereas the things that happen in academia, the research that happens in academia, that's what's used in industry to bring innovation to people. So really the two are not, they're not separate entities, but sometimes we tend to treat them as separate entities, and it can be unfortunate, actually. So yeah, I love that you talked about the fact that your clients are go ahead.
Like like you said, if you're making it so separate, what happens is that the research over here does not reach there in its entirety, because then you're like, you have your, like you said, your institutionalized ideas. You're like, oh, okay. Like there was this one incident that, like a little anecdote wherein one of my clients was really worried, and they're like, oh, I don't want to be in a situation where I land up being in technical sales. And I was like, okay, you may not want to be in technical sales, that's okay, but why do you think that's a bad situation to be in? Why is that? So you're like, no, technical sales, like if I've done a degree in science, why would I go into technical sales? And I said, do you even realize that the people who excel in technical sales are the ones who actually have a doctorate? Because when you're talking to a scientist and trying to sell your stuff, who will be able to sell it better than the one who understands the usage, has been there, done that? So sometimes it happens that we get into these little boxes of our own, and then we just, block out the whole world, and we say, oh, this is it. So that's a quite a big problem when it comes to this whole situation also.
Yeah, and you're so right? Like who better to tell another scientist about a piece of equipment, about the
Yeah.
technology behind it, about how it can help them solve a problem than somebody who has the scientific understanding of it. Not that somebody who doesn't have the scientific breadth cannot do that. There are lots of salespeople like this, but you're absolutely right. That's what it's technical, right? So it's always so funny to me when people make comments like that, because I'm like, well, I mean, and anyway, we could go on and on about this particular topic. I love this. Anyway, so what kind of last words of advice would you have for anybody that wants to start a business, wants to do what you do? I think you've said you shared so much. Just get started, right? Choose one platform and start marketing. Give away free information, and then people are going to come. You have to also have an offer. This is one thing I learned the hard way, is even though you're giving free information, have an offer, have something that you're selling, so that for the people who want to go the extra step with you, they can do that. What other advice would you give to a PhD wanting to enter into entrepreneurship?
Just because you've gotten a PhD, don't get all high and mighty. Uh, Learning never stops. My PhD taught me something else, but this journey is teaching me some completely different things. Like every day I have a time which is scoped out for learning for myself. So like I'm doing some courses, I'm reading something. So that learning never stops. So sometimes it so happens that we think we know it all until we realize we don't know it. So that is a very, very big thing. And it's not always that you're high and mighty. It's sometimes you're in this race and time is limited, so you're just trying to fit in so much that you stop learning. So never stop learning. Like always scope out that little time in the day. Every day schedule that little time to learn for yourself, because if you stop growing, then your business, your work, nothing can grow. So that's something that I really, really believe in, and try to follow on an everyday basis.
Absolutely agree with you. So for people that want to find you, want to learn more about Dr. Piali Ganika and Cell Savvy, where will they find you?
So yeah, I'm there on Twitter. On LinkedIn, I'm very active. I have taken a little bit of a break right now on LinkedIn because I'm, shifting houses and all of that is happening. But otherwise, I'm quite active on LinkedIn. And of course, my website, email IDs. So my website has all the, email IDs and the information and all of that. So, and I'm very active. Like I respond within hours. So yeah, that's where they can find me.
Absolutely. I'll make sure to put all that information in the description of this video. So make sure to check her out. She is doing some great things, and especially for all my connections and people that connect with me and are in India, Dr. Piali Ganika is somebody definitely worth following. So make sure to follow her. Thank you, Piali.
So much. Thank you. It was an absolute pleasure chatting with you.